Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so welcome to the January 18th meeting of the Metro Bureau Community Council. Thank you all for joining. And I guess we have enough to get approval of the agenda? We have 4 of us here.
Yes, as long as Roz was had a publicly accessible location on the agenda, then yes, we are good. Yes.
Okay, I see that. All right. So I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes for November 16th. Well, that's a long time ago. They were distributed. Make a motion to approve the minutes. Get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the chair's report was distributed and there was already one controversial thing in this. So do you want to talk about it now or should we wait until later on about the loading, the crowding of the trains? Lisa?
Now it's good.
So the crowd, right, do you want to bring up?
So, as you mentioned in the chair's report, there was adjustments to the schedule on effective, I think, Tuesday this week to accommodate work being done, I believe, in the tracks leading into Grand Central. So they reduced the number of trains by consolidating rush hour runs. I heard from other passengers that several of those consolidated trains have experienced a lot of crowding so far this week. I witnessed it myself. I was riding a train I don't usually ride yesterday, and it was one of the consolidated trains, and it was standing room only. Made somewhat more complex by the fact that the unconsolidated trains had lengths that were designed specifically to the platforms they would serve at some of the northern stations on the Harlem line. The consolidated trains are longer consists, but that means that not all cars will platform, and so it was people were the onboard crew was trying to figure their way through that. So I just wanted to touch base with Metro North to find out if they were monitoring the situation and considering any changes.
So I reached out to Metro North for information and heard back that we're always monitoring lengths and operational needs, but there will not be any trains added back. The least changes possible were made to allow for critical switch work to occur on campus here around the terminal. And I asked them, once switch work is completed, could trains be added back? I have not heard back from that yet, but we'll continue to follow up.
Like everything, I'm sure passengers will get the hang of it too.
So I showed somebody last night, I'd gone on a crowded train out of Grand Central going to Long Island, standing room only. And I had to show a few people how to use the app. So, I mean, these are regular riders. That would, well, fairly regular, didn't know that you could, that city ticket existed during, but whatever. So, but they still, I think that there probably could be a better campaign to let people know how to use those aspects of the app also. And we can certainly bring that back. Sorry about that.
One question.
Does that train originate in Southeast?
No, this is a Grand Central northbound train.
Oh, there's a northbound. And is
So, so what they did was, like, for as an example, at in the 6 o'clock hour, you have a 6:04 and a 6:10 and a 6:13. They consolidated the 6:04 and 6:10 into one train.
those go to Southeast?
I'm sorry?
Do both of those trains go, or did both of those trains go to Southeast?
Right. So one of them bizarrely actually terminates at Brewster, not Southeast. But one was, just the north end stations, Katona North. The other one was, Chappaqua through plus whatever.
Okay, so they combine those. And of course, I guess only 6 cars will open at those platforms up there.
Yeah, it's like Valhalla is a problem for that. And so, you have the onboard crew trying to consolidate passengers in just the cars that would platform, instead of having to wait and have people walk through cars.
It's frustrating to not know what's gonna platform. I mean, if you're a regular rider, you do, but if you're not a regular rider, that you don't. So, there should be, I think, well, actually on some, depending on where you're going, some of, on the app, it will say must be in the first 4 cars, like.
Right,
Worcesters.
Yeah,
You have to look.
as we all know, Metro North and Long Island Railroad riders are creatures of habit.
Yes, right. If you get on, you go down your steps, you get on that car. Or you go, right, right. Paula, you have your hand raised and then we'll, read what Richard wrote in the chat.
Yeah, just 2 points, I think. One, when they're making the announcement for non-regular riders that only certain cars will platform, the average non-regular rider doesn't realize what car they're in, right? So it's hard for you to adjust if there's no, you know, there needs to be some way of letting people know what car they're in, or because otherwise the announcement gets to be kind of useless.
I would say that the conductors are excellent about that. When they collect a ticket for a station that's at a car that's not gonna platform, they are very good about informing the rider.
And I would agree with that as well. And the other point on the trains that I've been on that just happen to be crowded, maybe because it's rush hour, people still are not using the center seat.
Yeah,
And so I don't see how we can add cars until they're using the center seat. And if you're concerned about sitting in the center seat, wear a mask.
well, there are, so 2 points to that. One is that they can't add cars because there are not enough vehicles. Right, there's not enough rolling stock. And, as, Maddie has pointed out in the past, there's a new campaign to use the center seat, the timing of introduction of which could have been better. But that's on the Long Island Railroad. I don't know if that exists. Have you seen that on Metro North? About using the center seat?
I hear them on the new hidden line.
Yeah, but nobody wants, I mean, that's what you.
They did last night.
Yeah. I mean, if there were, honestly, if there were 2 seats, I would have sat in the center seat last night. But there were not 2 seats because everyone sits on the outside. And if you're traveling with somebody, then I'm not gonna do. Yeah, I would have if I were going a long distance, but. So that's, you're right. I mean, that's an issue. If people are going long enough and they're tired enough, then they'll sit in the center seats, but.
You always call it the dreaded middle seat. All right. All right, so there were any other issues in in my chair's report that anyone want to talk about, please feel free.
Well, I did. The other day, we had some flooding at the Croton Harmon parking lot again, and I hadn't seen that in quite a few years since the village fixed it all up and raised it and so on. And now the other day, it was part of it was closed. There were pictures in the Journal News.
Randy,
Yes.
Randy, this is Rich.
Oh, Rich, okay,
I'm gonna put. Yeah, I'm
Richard.
with my attorney. I gotta put you on mute, okay?
sure, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess they've got that solved by now, but I don't know. But I hadn't seen flooding in Croton Harmon's parking lot for several years. And again, the other day, a big part of it was closed off for flooding. So we must have had a high tide and a lot of rain all at once that caused that. I don't know what else.
Oh, the flooding has been terrible. It's been high tide and flooding to the point of road closures just regionally. Interestingly, we had a meeting with some MTA folks and asked specifically about the Croton Harmon parking lot. And we're told that that is an area that is susceptible to flooding despite best efforts. And even though it hasn't seen it flooding for a while, anything could change, and that was 2 weeks ago. And then clearly it's still obviously an issue.
Built on a swamp.
Yeah,
so-
but there's been, the flooding here has been unbelievable, and it's taken roads out. I mean, major roads out, and like, don't drive through the roads, because they're major, anything that's been built on a river or a creek.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry to interrupt. I do concur with you on the river flooding. I mean, it's just getting more and more intense, and you know what? It's sooner or later, I fear for worse that we could maybe have another Sandy or an Irene that could come here because of the flooding. I have a cousin that goes to West Point, and you know what? The road, when we went to see a football game, the roads were washed away because of that flooding.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of work that's been done, including after the mudslide that happened a couple months ago, but there's obviously still more that needs to be done. The flooding that happened was also as a result of the high tide and the groundwater inundation that came after just rain event after rain event after rain event and additional snow. All the warnings and the alerts that came through were about groundwater inundation of up to 2 additional feet, plus also waves that were coming in at 6 feet off the bay and up to 20 feet in the ocean. So that was sort of a confluence of everything that went wrong.
Now-
Richard Joe has said, I will just say that my Port Jervis line car, train 48, showed up to Suffern looking at about 60% full yesterday, more than I've seen it in a very long time. And we were probably about 80% full after we left Ramsey 17. Today
Wow.
it was more back to post-COVID normal, close to 40% coming into Suffern. And I think that the weather that we're expecting tomorrow will probably keep a lot of people home. You may have heard that Amtrak canceled this many trains on the Northeast Road today. Today. They canceled it yesterday.
And last Friday.
They're having a solid equipment problems, they're having issues.
Yeah, but this is Northeast Corridor, I think local trains.
Yeah, no, that's.
Yeah. So,
But it's also Friday and fewer people ride on Fridays.
right, but not today.
Okay, so if we're all done with that, could we get the update from the executive director?
Sure. So one of the items in Randy's chair's report also referenced the governor's budget. And in the governor's budget and her state of the state, which was given the previous week, the governor reiterated her support for funding for transit and for the MTA. And in the budget, she proposed increasing state funding for the MTA by 11.5%, which is good news. And in addition, providing funding for engineering work, engineering studies and feasibility work to go ahead on both the Interborough Express and Second Avenue Subway Phase 2 westbound extension possibility. So those are projects that she's put her name and stamp of approval on. So we'll continue to follow those.
Was that a formal change? Like, I was under the impression that the next step after extension to 125th was going south. Was that?
So this, I personally call this phase 2.5.
Okay. Fair.
The tunnel boring machine will still be
Yeah.
there. So if,
Okay.
rather than just leaving it there, the proposal is to continue it for a quote unquote nominal additional amount of funds. It would honestly create an additional east-west subway that, north of 42nd Street, which would improve equity and access to people, and also decrease the amount of time for people who are trying to get from places like the George Washington Bridge bus terminal down to the Upper East Side, to other places that could improve the case for congestion pricing.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
New Jersey's heading to the hospitals.
Exactly, yeah.
All
And
of
so
us at the-
it's,
all of us at the- Lisa, all of us of a certain age remember that when proposed, it was supposed to go to the Bronx.
Yes, right, and and eventually, maybe one day, some of us will still be alive to see it go down all the way to Lower Manhattan. So, yeah, so this is, sort of a proposal that was voted in the 20-year needs analysis. Or considered it was the merits of it or looked at in the 20-year needs assessment. As a precursor to exploring it in the next capital program. And so this is looking at a different engineering feasibility study and analysis for those next steps. In addition, the governor spoke in her budget and State of the State extensively about affordability, accessibility for generally in the state and specifically around housing, access to employment, and the transportation world. And that really dovetails so well with the work that we, as your staff, have been doing and continue to do, looking at some of the key areas that were highlighted in the Omni report. That have a lot of traction and that will be going up next week to testify about in Albany, including City Ticket Weekly, fares in New York City on the commuter rails and increasing and permitting seniors and disabled riders to use their half fare discounts in the morning peak on the commuter rails, which is currently not allowed. And Rosalind, I was actually going to ask you as an HR professional, your thoughts on the limitations that you think that not permitting the use of peak, not permitting the use of those discounts during the peak as a barrier to employment is for seniors and people with disabilities.
I think that's a fair question. I don't know if there's any hard rule that would, support it, but definitely a fair question.
Okay, thanks. We're meeting actually with AARP next week to have a conversation with them. They're interested in working with us to follow up. And I think Randy and Walter, at your requests, they have been with somebody else. I don't think it was Orrin, but somebody else a few years ago. We posed a question about whether there was a violation of federal rule to discriminate against the use of senior and disabled discounts in the morning peak. And we inquired about that at the MTA and were told that no, because there's no federal mandate that there ever be that anybody be allowed to have a senior or disabled discount in the morning, and that it's extended as a courtesy on subways and buses, and it's extended as a courtesy in PM peak. So we continue to think that it's a really easily implemented low-hanging fruit proposal that is gaining a lot of traction with electeds and really goes hand in hand with the governor's efforts on employment first for the disability community and with goals to increase employment and access to employment for seniors and people with disability.
They're talking about the morning peak. Yeah, as I recall, the federal statute that requires the half fare for senior citizens and persons with disabilities provides that has to be in effect during off-peak hours. So there's no violation if you charge the peak hour fare during the peak hours, the regular fare during the peak hours. But you have to give the discount to people who are eligible for it during off-peak hours. And if you want to be generous and give it during the peak hours, that's okay too, but it's not mandated.
Right, that's what we learned, but currently peak evening hours are, you can use those discounts in the peak evening hours, just not in the peak morning hours. So it would seem that you can get home from work, you just can't get there.
It kind of complicates things if we have to buy more than one ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that Richard, what you're talking about is, I'll get back to that. You're talking about suffering. I'll get back to that in a moment. So we're going to Albany, next week to testify, and to meet with elected officials, to pursue these legislative goals to advocate for these goals that our elected officials are championing. And also to advocate for voting membership for MTA board members, which is something that has been pursued for some time, but our crackerjack staffer who has great contacts and where we need them, has been really working very hard on the legislation that has been recently updated, and we're seeing some movement on that, so we're advocating very strongly for that.
The Rider Representation Act.
The Rider Representation Act, because our representatives are the only ones who are required to ride transit on the MTA board.
Oh, absolutely. I do concur with you 100%. We need to have, the non-voting members vote, because the only members that could vote on the Metro are, Michael Fleischer, Blanca Lopez, and Neil Zuckerman, and they're appointed by the county executives. So having the power given, to the non-vote could really help out, because in a way, we also need to have, Rockland County, I know Executive Ed Day, and Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse to appoint new members to be as voting members as well.
Yeah.
Hold
on, Matt, I do want to make sure that we have some decorum now, so if you wait till I call on you, that would be great. I see that you do have your hand raised, so why don't you go ahead? Was that what you were going to say? You're muted now.
Still muted. Oh, Jason has.
Jason, you have your hand up, so why don't you go ahead?
Good afternoon, everyone from Atlantic City. The MTA has announced the request for federal funds, and there's some good news for Metro North, especially for the west of Hudson. I looked at the document last night, and it looks good. And they're gonna actually hold a public hearing at 2 Broadway, I think November 6th or 5th
February.
at 6 p.m.
Yeah, February.
And I totally agree, Lisa, with the point that the non-voting members should have the opportunity to vote, especially those that represent Metro North and the Long Island Railroad.
And transit riders.
We're not gonna tell Andrew you
Oh,
did.
of course, and TRC, because this is long overdue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Every
Thank
previous,
you, guys.
But I do wanna, since you mentioned the word hearing, so, thank you, Jason. Congestion pricing is also something that was in, Randy's report. And these State Administrative, Procedure Act, or SAPA, process is underway now, which means that people can, submit comments, and people are submitting comments, and apparently some thousands of comments have been received. Randy, you actually have on your, in your email, something to look at, please, which
Yeah, I
is
will.
on, a new lawsuit that has been brought saying, people said this, that It will interfere with people's ability to get to their second homes.
Yeah, I'll take care of it as soon as they're.
I know. I take the train, so personally. so,
Wow.
Yeah,
Class action suit,
It-
so there's a lot of very specific cases that are being brought against the MTA that. I think that the needs of transit riders are greatly outweigh.
but there's one of the people is with, has a funeral home. And he's like, I can't afford to keep going in and out of the zone every day. I think that people don't understand it's a one-time a day charge. I do agree with him that he cannot take dead bodies on a bus. That is one of the things he said, and that is very true. You should not be doing that. This is not Weekend at Bernie's. Which is one of my all-time favorite movies.
I gotta ask, is that an official policy or is that?
I think it probably is. Maybe if they're really very small. In a box, and nobody knows. I've taken my fit cat on a box, but that's a different story. So we are, there are 4 in-person and hybrid hearings that are being held. Hearings that are being held that are coming, starting February 29th. That we will be asking for volunteers to share testimony that we will prepare. You know, they're, as you know, they're long. They're capping them at 100 people. 100,
240 minutes,
240 minutes. So that's
that's 4 hours of public comment.
yeah, but we got a guy, so we'll be able to hopefully move people closer to the top of the list. I don't know how close or how topper, but we will. We'll get there. That bridge opens, I think, a week before.
Yes.
Yeah. And we'll share that information. We are still pursuing some op-ed opportunities that we discussed, and that's on my list of things to continue to get to next. But that is, you know, there's a lot of, unfortunately, the people who are sending in the negative comments are the ones with loudest voices. There's most people who have agreements and, you know, just are like, yeah, I'm fine with it, aren't the ones who say anything. So we're also working with our colleagues in advocacy and developing a template letter that it won't, nobody cares that it's a template, is what we've been told. It doesn't get thrown away just because there's 20 of them. It counts just like every other letter. So we'll share that with you as soon as we have that. Do you guys have a, oh, and my last thing before I let these guys talk about it, if there's any social stuff, was our hunt for an associate director continues. We have reposted it. We're going out gangbusters. It's on my LinkedIn page. It's and the PCAC page. And I think I was going to talk to you guys about maybe putting it on our website, you know, possibly, but we're gonna put it out, so if you all can take a look at it, know anybody. Broad and wide, please. Thank you.
Any update on adding members to the council from the governor's office?
No, because the Westchester County has to submit, so that's where it lies. You know, we need to, that's the door we need to knock on.
We did connect with the Westchester County Executive briefly at the elevator openings the last couple of weeks, but still working on.
Yeah.
Any word from them on their bus redesign?
Just, well, I saw today that Omni's coming to Beeline. Before
I
it
think
comes
we knew
to
that.
commuter rails. No, that's something we can follow up with them on the bus redesign, and that'll give us an opportunity. To also. Follow up on numbers. I don't want him to leave office and have. People. You know, to submit names in October and then he leaves office.
That's it.
Who is has the relationship with the office that can call and ask them to please, please, please?
Well, I have actually called several times and just haven't gotten any information back, but and I've even tried to hunt down the chief of operations, but Rosalind seems to run into Emily Saltzman at the most opportune times.
Well, that's what I was wondering. What is holding this up? Because like you, I'm concerned that, George is obviously not running for county executive. And at first we were not getting a response because it was election season. Election season is over, so do you know the holdup or should I?
We're waiting for the county executive to submit names.
One name, just one name?
No, we have 2 vacancies,
Just one according to what? 3?
but they also have the bike fed.
Yeah,
They
correct.
couldn't do the bike.
Well, I could.
And I think expressed interest in doing the bike.
Yeah, but then they have to do it. But as we know from our friend Mike, doesn't have to be county executive. It needs the county executive's blessing. But it could be another elected official.
Like whom?
But one would argue when the county executive and the governor are of the same party, those rules might not apply.
Yeah, Mike Stanton, who was recommended by a different mayor, by a mayor. Because the Metro North Railroad Commuter Council has its own personality, as you all know. And in its authorizing legislation, doesn't specify that it must be the Westchester County Executive, the Rockland County, there is a floater. And there's also that there are elected officials, like mayors, who can make recommendations.
Wait. So are you saying that, for example, the mayor of Mamaroneck or New Rochelle could make a recommendation to George's office and he can approve it?
Yes,
So maybe we should try that route.
Yeah. Or maybe the mayor of Yonkers.
Yeah, it'd be good to have somebody from the Hudson line.
Yeah. You know somebody in that firm. Yeah, maybe that's the route.
I think we should try that. Let me see if I can reach out. Now, how many, can the mayor just announce one person or more than one person?
One. No, they can say, here's 6 people, pick one, or here's one person, can you please move this forward?
Okay. I will see what I can do.
And then we can proceed with others.
Yeah,
I'll
I
let
mean,
you
I
know.
think Mayor of Yonkers would be great, he's active and interested.
Okay.
bicycle friendly.
So
Well,
you-
they don't have to be bike, they can be. No, they can be Metro North Ride.
No, I'm just, I feel like that's a bikeable
Community.
area.
For that one.
Yeah.
There.
You have no idea who those are.
I would say like, I think that's really.
Doesn't look like it in the map.
Right. That's at the top of, right? So that's a great, great avenue to pursue.
All right, I thank you for that. Old
I think,
business,
sorry, just one thought on there. So a lot of people in Yonkers, probably fewer people in Yonkers ride Metro North than do take the bus to the subway. So that might be one obstacle. But for instance, New Rochelle, people are anxiously awaiting the new, the new stations and the new Penn Access, and that's. Then that would be a great voice to add.
Yeah, I think I can connect with New Rochelle. I'll work on that.
thank
Super.
you.
Great.
All right.
So you still have your hand up, was that for that, or do you have something else?
The only other thing I was going to say is it's pretty easy to adjust those template letters that you were speaking of. So I would encourage people when you get the template to kind of put it in your own words. Doesn't take a lot to do that.
Great. Excellent, great, thank you. Jack, you want to give our social media update?
Yes.
Communications.
So in general, the Metro North Twitter has been very responsive to riders with their concerns. And by and large, service has been running smoothly. A rider asked if Metro North is planning on restoring quiet car service. They responded that they're not. Another rider has
Yeah.
Another rider praised Metro North Cruise for their hard work in trying to get a delayed 754 train to Grand Central Terminal to Southeast moving again, which is nice to see. Yesterday, a rider requested an explanation as to why train 1437 from Greenwich to Grand Central made local stops instead of express. The railroad responded with a complaint form and did not give a specific explanation. Lastly, some riders expressed challenges caused by the storm and flooding on the 9th and the 13th. There were some luckily, though, when it comes to the winter weather, there have been no significant disruption caused by the storms that were on the 15th and on the 9th as well. Really, it's just the flooding that seems to be causing the disruptions. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Rich seems to have dropped off, so.
So Richard, Richard, you were talking about accessibility at Suffern. And that's something that our former Vice Chair Oren worked on for years, a decade, 2 decades. And it's probably working on from another place, another plane, as it were. It's something, you're correct that because of the lack of wheelchair accessibility, there are Accessoride can't take them into New Jersey. Somebody is wheelchair user, or you know, the New York service doesn't go to New Jersey. So there's a push to make Suffern accessible. Ellen, who is the former we have a person. Okay. Ellen Shannon, the former associate director, was working closely, met with the mayor, met with the some of the public works people and so on to see what could be done. And I think that Kathy Rinaldi had said that they were studying accessibility improvements to Suffern as well. So it's a project that is long overdue and something that definitely needs to be done. And I think that we need to re-examine our notes to see.
Is there a public list of accessibility priorities across the system today?
There is a list of projects. I don't know if, I mean, it's probably based on a few things. If there's it's probably based on ridership, proximity, use, right, ridership, use, proximity to other stations.
There's subways, but I don't think that there's one for the railroads.
Yeah. But we know that, yeah, on, I think there's this, and they tend to cluster the contracts.
Right.
So we will ask them.
It's also part of the ADA accessibility, the Metro North ADA Accessibility Task Force. When we have those meetings every so often, they talk about that it's still under the, you know, they're still looking into it. And have a consultant working on designing something. So we're kind of overdue for one of those quarterly meetings.
Yeah, wasn't there one, we were in this room in the last November, okay.
So
Right.
that would be February.
I'll email Jen after the meeting and ask him when the next one is.
No, Richard, I don't want it to drop. not asking for an entire high-level platform. It would, I don't think they can do like a step platform, so it would need to require some kind of additional construction. Because you can't just add a ramp, there also have to be boarding, bumps, chain height levels. So that people can, don't have to do wheelies to get onto trains.
Okay,
So it's more than an easier quick fix. And in fact, the riders deserve it. It's been a long time in the works, so. We will need to pursue it. Maddie has, Rosalind, you have your hand up.
Yep, just an observation, and this is probably more of a PCAC comment, but I've noticed lately that the communication and marketing from MTA and Metro North is very focused on accessibility. And at one time, there seemed to be a focus on safety. And I just think that, you know, as we're talking about increased prices and stuff, that we shouldn't let the message of we're making things safer and accessible as opposed to just accessible. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
There's also some new messaging around, yes, heat from the system that I've seen.
Yeah.
But I think, Rosin, based on what the CEO said at the press conference on congestion pricing, I think there is a communication strategy to focus on accessibility improvements as one of the major areas that's going to be funded with congestion pricing revenue. So they are making a concerted effort to tie that together. I mean, legally it's all part of the capital plan, but I think they're trying to say this is what you get for it, and that's been their strategy.
Right.
And that's what I'm questioning, because there are a lot of people out there who are not as focused and welcoming on the accessible side. And I just feel like, yes, we want accessibility, but yes, safety appeals to the broadest number of people. So I totally get that.
Well, there are a lot of different kinds of safety. There were, as you probably know, 3 different derailments on subway trains in a month. Which is, the kind of safety that we never want to talk about. Then there are the shootings on the trains that's the kind of safety we never want to talk about, which is one of the reasons we would like the MTA safety committee to meet monthly instead of quarterly. As we've been talking about for years, and do it at a time that's a little more high profile, so that they put more spotlight on all of the different aspects of safety, so that people can know the level of spotlight that the MTA is putting. There are components of this safety, including traffic placement, new signals, new rail cars, but also cameras, and different kinds of enforcement techniques and opportunities that require hardware that are part of the capital program also, that we're trying to push out there as tying into the need for congestion pricing to help pay for those that are in the capital program. So we do communicate with the MTA on the need to use some of that languaging, and we'll continue, but we'll reinforce that was raised. Thank you. Maddie, I see that you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madame. Speaking of accessibility, because with the congested pricing in effect, because the goal is to get to 95%, by what year of accessibility did they say?
2055.
And then hopefully 100% by the 2060s or 70s, maybe.
Well, I think that they're hoping to get to 100% sooner, because they are hoping that there will be improved technology in the elevator, escalator, and other accessibility, concerns.
Cause, oh, absolutely, cause cause I live in Long Island, my train station Seaford, and they have an elevator and an escalator that was installed back in 2009. But yeah, it is important, because I saw in the press conference though that there were two official ones, one at Scarsdale, one at Hartsdale, right? And and we're making progress, and I thank Mr. Keanu Arroyo and Chris Gry for that.
Well,
You-
Chris is definitely a strong proponent, and we're glad that he is a voice of our council.
Oh,
It's also, it's also a prime consideration of the chair, Jano and Jamie. But it's, it was the settlement of the lawsuit, I think, was one of the crowning moments of Jano's leadership, was that they finally said, we have to do this. Why are we fighting? So
sorry.
working with the disability community has made the MTA a better and a better place that's gonna take it closer to meeting its goals. Is it there? No. Is it closer? It's getting there.
Yeah, and I just want to speak about one more thing as well about the lawsuit. It's related congested pricing. Is that true, or
Which one? There's one that there's several. There's a new one that's being discussed today that is from the Lower East Side, including the funeral home directors.
because I do have no, because how many
officials in-
sorry, and this is my first time speaking. I'm sorry, keep that. I just have one more. How many of you, because with congested pricing going into effect, how many of you are aware that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey had increased their tolls by 63 cents, and with the congested pricing going to effect, that could really harm people, because I have people that maybe live in Rockland or Orange that may drive in and they will have to pay a lot of money. And sometimes there's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing,
Well, yeah, no, absolutely, but I think that the Port Authority was gonna do what the Port Authority was gonna do. They certainly knew that congestion pricing was coming. And they didn't ask anybody.
Or
Oh.
the turnpike.
Yeah, and the turnpike.
Weird how that works. It's almost like New Jersey gets to make its own decisions
Yeah.
about tolling.
Right, well,
because I know the worst person in charge of that is Diane Gutierrez Scacchetti, I know.
mm,
And she's in charge, I know of that though.
Matt, I'm going.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome to work today, huh?
thank you. So we have one more item of business, Randy. I don't know if you have other things to discuss, or other people do as well. I'd like to take the vote before anybody needs to drop off while we have 4 people. It's a late addition to the agenda, so you don't see it on there. But as Randy had pointed out, that it is time for our MTA board members to come back up for reappointment. Which we should do as long, particularly since we're asking them to be voting members. And so we would like to take a vote to reappoint, well, for a person to nominate. If we'd like to have Randy nominated as our Metro North Railroad Candidate Council MTA board member, first as a nomination and then as the vote. So may I have a nomination?
I nominate Randy for the MTA board.
May I have all in favor? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Randy, you can vote for yourself here. Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you.
I know, and Richard, I know if you could, you would. And may I have a motion to move that nomination to election.
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. We have accomplished that bit of business. We will send the appropriate letters for all of our board members to the governor's office. Today's one.
The terms expire in January, but it takes a long, very, 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 very long time for them to reconfirm us.
Well, if there needs to go through Senate approval, then we need to have that happen before September.
I want to explain
Sorry, by
why.
June.
Should we move that the council formally apologize to Randy for doing that to him?
Well, I wanted to say something. The room that we are in is a very large room, and they have these sensors on the lights. And if nobody moves or in the right place, the lights dim. So that's why we've been getting up and moving around. It's not my watch telling me it's time to get up and move.
My office does that too, and so sometimes you see me go like this.
I didn't want to do that in the room. It would look funny. So we'll just get up when we have to. So I thank you all. Rich has disappeared from here, so he had some meeting with his attorney on the phone call. That's why he probably did drop out. Is there anything else that you want to bring up?
There was one other thing. So George Latimer held a press conference that about West Side accessibility for the Hudson Yard, which is a project that goes way back. That would bring it into Penn Station. Because apparently he's running for some. And I asked about that too. So feasibility studies have already occurred. And it was studied in the 20-year needs process.
It's for the Hudson line.
Hudson line.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes,
That's right. Did I say Hudson Yard? Sorry, Hudson line. Feasibility studies have already occurred. It was studied in the 20-year needs process as a possible expansion project for the 25-29 capital plan. And it, let's see, how does it look? It scored about $4.5 billion. No, cost over time savings, didn't say really. It says 4.54. So it is, as opposed to, for example, the Interborough, which is 1.29.
How the heck is that possible?
Harlem line capacity improvements are 2.46 and would benefit substantially more people. Hudson line to Penn Station says that the total ridership that would is less than 20 of something. Total riders from equity areas is less than 20%. Of riders from equity areas is pretty high. Regional accessibility is relatively low. Change in vehicular miles traveled is scored well there. Resiliency scored well there, I think. That there's decent capacity. And the construction cost is just $750 million.
Yeah.
And so it's being studied and considered. The next steps after the 20-year needs assessment are the capital program evaluation and public comment period, which will happen in the fall, which we will ask for presentation on at a PFAC meeting, either in March or June, maybe September. We'll find out the best timing for that. See the best ways to weigh in, so that we can really have a better idea of looking at the projects in the assessment. Because these projects are directly vying for the available dollars aside from state of good repair, which is where 80% of the money is given, as it should, so that we can get home when we need to get. So, it is an election. So there'll be a lot of things that are put out there. So
Randy's gotta come.
Randy,
Yes, I could look up the details, but I believe it was the first year I was on the board. I think it was 2017. That was the first year. At the end of the year, the board approved the concept of the Penn Access project. And board member Zuckerman, my predecessor here, had asked the question of the chairman, does this preclude getting allowing Hudson Line trains into Penn? And he said, no, we'll do it. So I could look back in my notes and see what I have about that. I'll email you later, but there was a commitment by the then chair that this would happen. That's
so
something-
we all have seen what happens when somebody says it doesn't preclude it.
Get that to you and the staff this afternoon.
Because we've seen that the unprecluded transit on the.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this, yeah.
The unprecluded transit on the George, right? There's unprecluded transit on the Verrazano, maybe? Yeah.
No, it's a tunnel. There was a tunnel on the Fourth Avenue, from Fourth Avenue to Staten Island that never got built.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay,
But then there was also the tunnel that extends the one line to Staten Island. So, yeah, yeah, that may be at the extension of the Second Avenue subway. When your grandchildren are, right?
My great grandchildren.
My great grandchildren are having kids,
away.
yeah. So that was part of the news to shore, so. I know, it might be interesting if Blanca raised that at the board briefing that you all have.
before I forget it, just to let everybody know that the meeting in February is going to be one day earlier on a Wednesday. There's a transportation event that the staff will be going to. So it'll be on Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day,
One day early.
I couldn't come on Thursday.
okay. Yes, Carol will be able to make either because she has been accepted to the
NYU Rudin Center Emerging Leaders in Transportation Program. Thank you. I'm very excited.
How long is it?
It's a 3-day program, that same week.
So we're ditching her for Jack and I are ditching her for the transportation infrastructure conference. Or she's actually ditching us to go mix and mingle with some
Rising.
hobnob with the
Sorry.
yeah. that's okay. Right.
Thank you.
So we'll send out updated calendar invitation for that.
Okay. Anything else?
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Rules and priority.
Have anything you want to suggest?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay. I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, is this just those chickens now?
Is us and
Yes.
Richard still here? Okay.